When was the last time that you were working in Zorro Ranch, New Mexico?
Probably 2006, 2007.
Okay. And how many times have you been to Zorro Ranch?
At least 20 times.
And in your capacity in working, quote-unquote, working at Zorro Ranch, describe your, or I should ask you first, had you met Jeffrey Epstein?
I had seen him twice, talked to him once, very, very short, not really a conversation.
What kind of place is Zorro Ranch?
So, as you approach Zorro Ranch from the highway, north of Moriarty, there is a little town, like a western town, except the buildings are painted in bright colors rather than the dull wood of a typical western town. You've got the general store and different things like that. Those are all facades because those buildings are actually homes for the on-ranch staff, as well as equipment storage and things like that. The house, his house, was built by Bradbury and Stam, and it is a huge home. It looks like when you approach it looks like a resort hotel. It is way up on the hill. You can barely see it from the town down below. And there's a long road up there, a loop road. He's got a small airport, things like that.
Talk first about the area that you can see right from the road. That would be Highway 41. There's a gate that would allow you in. To get into that gate, would you have to buzz somebody to get into that gate?
You would have to either know the code or contact somebody inside. So
in Florida, he had a house manager. In Paris, he had a house manager. Would you have to contact the house manager, or who would you contact?
Yes, he also had one in New York.
And did he also have one here in?
He did.
He did. Okay.
They also have cameras on the gate, so they would see you.
They would see you if you approached the gate.
That's correct.
It's a pretty secure place, correct?
Yeah, it's reasonably secure. I mean, it has a ranch fencing around. There's some cameras. The staff is pretty minimal. When I was there, they didn't have any, like...
How many people?
Just maybe 6, 7 at the most.
Were they there year-round?
Yes.
Okay. What did the staff consist of?
There was a ranch manager. There was a couple that did the business operations. And then there was a...
Let's describe who the couple was.
Well, the couple were from New Zealand, and husband and wife, and they handled the management of the ranch, the business. Then you had another person who managed the actual ranch itself as far as maintenance on equipment, taking care of fences, that type of stuff.
Okay.
You had people who cooked, people who cleaned, people who managed the home, that kind of stuff.
So how many people were there cooking? How many people managed the home? How many people were fixing stuff?
That depends. I think he brought more staff when he had his entourage. So he would come a couple times a year with an entourage of about 30 people or so. And then they'd party, they'd pull out all the toys and the four-wheelers and that kind of stuff. So I assume he would bring more staff then. You'd have to with that many people.
There's people there at the front. There's, from what you described, 6 to 7 people who are managing everything. Were the people the married couple who were at Zorro Ranch, were they at the front? They were living in the front and not at Zorro Ranch?
That's correct.
And the house manager, was he also living in the front?
No, nobody lived in the Epstein home but Jeffrey and his entourage.
What did you know about Jeffrey Epstein during that time from 06, 07 that you didn't know when you started working?
Well, initially when I started working, I knew very little about him. Of course, I Googled and that kind of stuff. And most of the stuff that was going on hadn't occurred yet. Later in the time that I was working there, I had seen things in the house on the computers. kind of had me evaluating whether I should be working for him or not. There was numerous photographs in frames in his library, his office, on the wall of young underage girls, topless, and him and various other powerful people.
When you say powerful people, are we talking people of national, international, local prominence?
Both. You know, you've got celebrity entertainment people. You've got political people. I think a past Fed chairman was one of them. Bill Clinton. Yeah, all sorts of people. He wasn't shy about having those in his house. However, I know around 2005, when the feds were after him, and he was hopping from place to place, those pictures that he had all over the house ended up disappearing. So I assume they took those down in case he got raided.
So you were there before and after those pictures were there?
Yes, yes. I think that was around 2005 is when the pictures disappeared.
Let's talk about the airstrips and what you know about how Jeffrey Epstein got to Zorro Ranch. Did he fly directly in? Do you know if those airstrips were in use?
I know they came in on vehicles. I know the airstrips were in use on occasion. I don't know if he personally came in on a small plane. They're not very big.
You've been inside the home, correct?
Many, many times.
And we have a number of photos of inside the homes. Would you say that the video of the photos that I'm in receipt of are 100% accurate, not doctored up?
Absolutely. I recall there was like a table with a bunch of picture frames with pictures of different people and things like that. A lot of times it was, the photo op photos where he's with somebody famous and that kind of stuff. On occasion there'd be, the young ladies and things like that. Most of those were in his library. I think I provided a picture of that as well.
So in there's looks like to be two buffalo heads.
Yeah, there's a large buffalo head.
Yeah, there's a number of pictures that are there featured very prominently in the foyer. Let me go to the picture of the library that we have here, which is very interesting.
Also, you have some petroglyphs that I assume were taken from public land.
I did see that. I noticed the petroglyphs that were there. We'll, of course, get to that. Let me get to the library photos. Describe this library. Here's an interior of his library. It's 2 chairs, a place where he obviously made his phone calls from, a number of books. Describe what's there.
So, yeah, the library really cracked me up. He had this huge leather trash can of a giant frog next to his desk. It was made out of leather. He had, pictures, lots of books. I don't know if they were read or not. And he had the obligatory giant globe, not one, but 2 of them in the library.
I see them both, as indicated by the photo.
Yeah, that cracked me up. Also, he had the obligatory giant outdoor chess set.
I don't see that, but I am looking at other pictures of the library. He was completely surrounded by books. There looks to be like a curtain that separates the library and everything else. That curtain blocks off some windows to the outside. Do you know whether or not it was used much? How much do you know about it? What do you know about what the people at the front of the ranch would say?
Well, like I said, he would come out not very often, maybe a couple times a year with an entourage of people. I assume he didn't use any of the house very much, other than the week or 2 that he was out there. The guy hopped around everywhere. The next room over in those pictures was kind of interesting. The one with the chandeliers and the fireplace, kind of a long room with a white carpet. So that had all sorts of weird lamps and sculptures that were of a sexual nature, couples engaged in, I don't know.
I can see one right there on the table, the silver one.
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a couple there, and then there's that weird lamp. It's just, it was kind of like, I don't know, some of the pillows had embroidery like that.
Well, we can certainly see all of that. Let's talk about what you know about other parts of the home, of the house. Obviously, you've been there 20 times, but what you know about there seems to be a giant bathhouse that's there. Describe your feeling when walking into that. Has a huge bathhouse with a giant shower head where people could supposedly clean themselves off, from what I can tell. But as I'm looking at this bathhouse, it looked like it could have 20 to 30 people in there.
Yes, that was actually the bathroom off the master bedroom. So that giant shower had windows to the outside, and it is, it's probably as long as my living room and half as wide.
The shower, we'll get to the shower in a moment. I want to talk about the giant bathhouse.
Are you talking about the blue one?
The one with the pink and rose-colored painting or paint or color. Several places where you could drop towels off at after you're done bathing. And then it looks to be a hot tub as well.
Oh, yeah. So that's a swimming pool.
Okay.
That's a swimming pool with a hot tub and then a shower directly behind it with a blue kind of open frame dividing them. Mm-hmm. And then all the shampoos and stuff on there. Let's
talk a moment about that shower that you started to speak of. So many soaps, so many shampoos, so many things identified right there. This is one man, certainly not the shower of a single man. No, that's a party shower. That's everybody get in. Tell me about that. Yeah, that's a big shower. I don't know. It's amazing. Fancy marble. A view to the outside while you're scrubbing up. Yeah, I can see the giant windows that are facing outside. Where do those windows look to? They look towards the Sandia Mountains? They look, no, they look out south, I believe. And you can't really see, any civilization from those windows, so I don't think anybody could see him. What is your impression and what do you know about the nature of Jeffrey Epstein? Well, what I had heard in discussion with staff and what I had seen pretty much jives with everything that's going on. Although I wasn't really surprised to hear about the 12-year-old girl, the triplets or whatever that's been talked about. I knew he liked the younger girls, and not just him, but there was a lot of people involved in that. His partner Elaine and apparently some other people. So it's not surprising at all. I am surprised that they're claiming that he suicided, because I seriously doubt that. He was a narcissistic jerk, and I think he would have tried to fight the battle all the way to the end. How were you initially contacted to do work for him? I was subcontracting. So let's talk a little bit about the setup over at Zorro Ranch. And there's been a lot said about blackmailing, having information on powerful people. Of course, very powerful people tried to distance themselves from him. Talk to me about surveillance, technology, video cameras. There was obviously a lot of photographs being taken, because those photographs he had all over, and I'm surprised that the people involved would allow that to happen. But they seemed pretty candid, and lots of smiling and that kind of stuff going on. As far as the blackmail stuff is, I noticed in some of the wiring closets there was video distribution systems, which I had initially assumed to be for entertainment, but now I'm not so sure. They may have had hidden cameras in some of the rooms, that type of thing. I can't say for sure, but I suspect so. What can you tell me specifically about what you know about politicians being there? Certainly, Dershowitz has been that he was there. There are a number, not Dershowitz saying that he was there, but there have been alleged Moni, etc., that he's been there. But tell me what you know in terms of actual people there. Yes, I had heard. I had heard John Travolta, Prince Andrew, Bill Richardson. Although I hadn't seen any of these people. I had seen a photo of him and Bill Clinton smoking cigars on
cool lounge chairs with underage topless girls. As far as anybody else, I have not personally seen anybody.
The location of that picture that was taken, where would you say that was? Was that in?
That was in Santa Fe, yes.
But the picture itself, where was the location of that?
I would say that was Little St. James, because it was an outdoor pool, and he didn't have an outdoor pool at Zorro.
How much interaction did you have with the other houses, New York, Palm Beach, Little St. James, Paris?
Only by phone. I was supposed to go to Little St. James around the time that I terminated working for him because of everything that was coming out. And I was worried when I was asked to go out there for a few weeks to a month to work on some things that maybe somebody knew that I knew what was going on, and maybe I wouldn't come back from that. So I declined and came up with my excuses.
When were you asked to go?
That was right around 06, 07 when I stopped working for him.
Had you ever met Ghislaine Maxwell?
I had bumped into her once. I haven't had any dialogue. In fact, the first time when I did meet her, I didn't even know who she was.
Trying to get to more information on the ranch. You said it's secure. It has not been raided.
It's secure as any other property, really. I mean, I don't know about when he was there. I assume maybe he had some armed security, which I didn't see ever. Of course, that's part of the job. But most of the time when he wasn't there, it was just the ranch staff. And like I said, all they had was, some cameras around. But as far as being super secure, it wasn't like a super secure place.
I reached out to a member of the ranch staff. He has declined wanting to have anything to do with an interview for any reason. Why would he say that?
Fear.
Of what?
Well, a lot of people have committed suicide, allegedly, over the course of this, related to people who were involved in this, so I can understand that.
Why did you agree to speak to me?
Well, it needs to come out. It needs to be verified. I hate corruption.
What else had you learned from the ranch staff about local politicians, sheriffs, connections here locally?
I hadn't heard anything about any sheriffs or anything like that. The only name that had ever come up was Bill Richardson, as far as local politicians. How
many times did his name come up, and why did it come up?
I don't know, a few times, just casually, that he was one of the people being entertained.
When you're saying being entertained, what do you mean?
Well, that's I don't know. You can draw your own conclusions.
Was the staff aware of what was happening at the ranch?
Some staff was, but, a lot of people wouldn't talk about it for obvious reasons. I mean, they want to keep their job, they want to keep their life, that kind of stuff. So, it's one of those ostrich things. You stick your head in the sand and continue doing what you're doing.
Do you think that these people continue to be fearful, and for what reason?
I assume so, because of the things that they know occurred. I mean, if they were called to testify.
Have you ever been contacted by authorities, law enforcement, or anything based upon the information that you know about what's happened at Zorro Ranch?
I have not.
In terms of underage trafficking?
Nope. So, Steve Scully was the IT guy at Little St. James. You might want to talk to him, too, because he quit for the same reason I did.
The names that I have of the people at the ranch, to your knowledge, are they 100% accurate?
Yes.
And your information that you've given me here this afternoon, it's 100% accurate?
Absolutely.
Do you wonder why the Attorney General's office and maybe the governor and law enforcement authorities have not raided Epstein Ranch that's been untouched? Jeffrey Epstein did not have to register as a sex offender here in the state of New Mexico.
Do I wonder why? No, I don't wonder why. I mean, he's high and mighty, and he's connected to high and mighty people, and that's how they work. You know? I think the dirt that he has on people has kept him out of prison up till now. And I think what happened was whoever was holding the bag, i.e. the information, they got to first. Because, you know, I'm sure he had instructions for that information to be released in the event of his suicide. And the fact that that occurred makes me wonder if maybe some of that evidence has been recovered.